I was supposed to be enjoying my retirement, playing golf, maybe taking a cruise or two. Instead, I was dealing with what I can only describe as a sustained campaign of psychological warfare waged by my own daughter, Rebecca. For months, she had been dropping hints, making comments, and frankly, demanding that I move out of my house. The house I built, the house she grew up in, the house she was absolutely convinced was, or soon would be, hers. The pressure was relentless. She wanted me to downsize, to move into an assisted living apartment, or better yet, move in with her so she could manage my care, which I knew was code for manage my money. But there was one huge detail Rebecca didn't know, a secret I had kept for nearly 10 years, and it was the key to everything. The last time she told me, with that sickening sweet tone she uses, that it was time for me to be realistic and hand over the keys, I finally snapped. I sold the house right out from under her, and I didn't tell her a single thing until the new owners showed up on the doorstep. The look on her face, priceless, but the shockwave that followed almost destroyed my family. Tell me, was I wrong for what I did? Should a father endure emotional abuse and manipulative scheming just to preserve the peace? Or do you fight back when your own child turns on you? The story of how I ended up in this situation really starts 30 years ago, when I met Rebecca's mother, Susan. Susan and I had a beautiful life together. We were high school sweethearts who built everything from the ground up. I worked long hours as a civil engineer, and she was a dedicated teacher. The house, the one at the center of this mess, wasn't just some property. It was a testament to our love and hard work. We bought the land cheap on the outskirts of the city, and I personally designed every single beam, window, and wall. It was a 4-bedroom colonial with a wraparound porch and a huge backyard where Rebecca spent her childhood climbing the old oak tree and playing with the neighborhood kids. It was a happy home, full of laughter, the smell of Susan's baking, and the messy chaos of raising a child. Rebecca, as a girl, was bright, enthusiastic, and genuinely loving. We were proud parents. She was a good student, went off to a respectable university, and eventually settled down a few towns away with her husband, Mark. The first cracks in our relationship appeared subtly, right after she finished college. She seemed to develop an entitled view of money and success. She chose a career that, frankly, didn't pay as well as she hoped, and she married Mark, a nice enough guy, but one who was constantly chasing get-rich quick schemes that usually left them broke. I always helped them out quietly, covering a few months' rent here, paying a big car repair bill there. It was what parents do, I told myself, but the requests became more frequent, and her appreciation became more fleeting. She started viewing my success, and by extension, our house, as a kind of family bank waiting for her withdrawal. The real shift, the dramatic turn, happened about 10 years ago when Susan passed away. It was sudden, a heart attack, and it devastated me. Susan was my anchor, my rock. In the wake of her death, Rebecca, who was already married, didn't step up to help me so much as she seemed to circle the financial waters. Within a month of the funeral, she was asking about the will, specifically, who inherited the house. I told her the truth. Susan and I had structured everything, including the house, as a life estate, meaning it was put in a living trust where I retained lifetime tenancy and control, but upon my death, it would pass directly to Rebecca. This was standard practice to avoid probate and ensure she was taken care of. But the key part was, and I stressed this to her, it passes upon my death. While I was alive, it was legally, unequivocally, mine. That seemed to settle it for a while, but the knowledge that she was the heir, the knowledge that this valuable asset was hers eventually, became a corrosive force in her mind. Her resentment and impatience grew. As the years went on, and I grew older, I'm 72 now, in excellent health, thank you very much, the pressure escalated. The calls stopped being about checking in, and started being about checking *up*. Dad, are you eating enough? It's really too much house for one man. Have you thought about finding a nice condo, Dad? Less maintenance, more manageable. The property taxes are getting outrageous, Dad. It's financially irresponsible for you to stay there. And the absolute worst, Mark and I are just thinking practically, Dad. When you pass, the house is ours anyway, so it just makes sense for us to move in now and take care of the upkeep. We can put you in the guest room, you'd love the quiet. I felt like an object, a fixture that needed to be removed so the real business, the property transfer, could take place. The guest room, in my own home. The audacity was staggering. This went on for years, increasing in intensity after Rebecca and Mark had a massive financial setback, losing a significant investment on a failed business venture. They were desperate, and their desperation morphed into an aggressive entitlement directed squarely at me and my assets. About a year ago, things reached a climax. Rebecca showed up unannounced with a contractor, ready to measure the kitchen for a renovation she was planning to start. She told me, I need to get a head start on updates before we move in, Dad. You know, to keep the resale value up. That was the moment I realized her intention wasn't just to hurry things along. It was to actively push me out, to take over while I was still breathing. It was insulting, it was heartbreaking, and it was a complete betrayal of the relationship between a parent and a child. I asked her to leave, and we had the worst fight of our lives. I called her spoiled and greedy. She called me a stubborn old man living in the past and hoarding her inheritance. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard a picture fell off the wall. I sat in my quiet, suddenly cold living room, staring at the empty spot on the wall where Susan's favorite picture used to hang, and I decided enough was enough. I wasn't going to live the rest of my years under the shadow of her avarice. I was going to teach my daughter a lesson she would never forget. So that's the situation I was in. I was being treated as an obstacle, a ticking clock, by my own daughter, who was waiting for me to die so she could claim my home, the last place Susan and I shared. And I had a powerful, secret card to play. Before I tell you what happened next, what the secret was, and what the final, explosive result of my decision was, I want you to pause and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have sold the house? Would you have just written her out of your will? Or would you have endured it for the sake of your family? What would have been your first step to defend yourself and your life? The key to my plan lay in the exact wording of the trust document that Susan and I had created years ago. Rebecca always focused on the part that said, upon the death of the surviving spouse, Michael T. Miller, the house and its property shall pass to our daughter, Rebecca S. Miller. What she completely ignored, because she never actually bothered to read the full, detailed document, was a crucial clause that Susan and I had added after watching a documentary about financial abuse of the elderly. This clause gave the surviving spouse, me, the sole, irrevocable right to dissolve the living trust and sell the property at any time without prior consent or notification of the beneficiary. Should the surviving spouse deem it necessary for their health, financial well-being, or emotional security. Susan, ever the cautious one, had insisted on it, saying, "You never know what life will bring, Michael. We need an escape hatch." And that escape hatch was about to become a cannon. My plan was simple and ruthless. Sell the house, liquidate the asset, and remove the source of her constant greed and pressure. I didn't need the money to survive. I had plenty of my own investments and a good pension. But I was tired of being her personal punching bag. I contacted a lawyer, an old friend named David, and explained the situation. He looked over the trust, confirmed the clause was airtight, and simply said, "Michael, it's your house. Do what you need to do." I immediately put the house on the market, but I did it very quietly, using a different agent in a neighboring city who didn't know my family. I told the agent I was downsizing quickly for personal reasons, and that all communication had to be through email and my lawyer. Within a month, I had a cash offer well over the asking price from a couple who had recently relocated and wanted a quick closing. It was perfect. The contract was signed. The closing date was set for 6 weeks later. I was careful to keep my routine normal and to dodge Rebecca's sporadic calls, using the excuse that I was busy with a major carpentry project, which I technically was as I was packing. The day of the closing, I was out of the house by 9 a.m. All my personal belongings, my clothes, Susan's photographs, and anything sentimental were already moved into a small, rented storage unit. I took the final check for the sale, confirmed the funds were transferred to a new private account, and then I drove to a beautiful, remote lake house I had purchased a few months earlier with my liquid retirement savings, a place Rebecca didn't even know existed. I left the house completely empty, save for one thing, an envelope taped to the refrigerator. The final scene, the climax, unfolded on a sunny Saturday afternoon. Rebecca and Mark, utterly unaware of the closing that morning, showed up at the old house. They had brought a truck filled with new furniture, convinced they were just going to do some light cleaning and measure for drapes, a clear preparatory step in their takeover plan. I wasn't there to witness it in person, but I heard the entire confrontation later, in minute-by-minute detail. The new owners, Mr. and Mrs. Harrison, arrived to take possession shortly after Rebecca and Mark. The Harrisons, a kind older couple, unlocked the front door and walked in to find Rebecca and Mark standing in the empty living room, looking bewildered. The conversation started innocently enough. "Oh, excuse me, Mrs. Harrison said politely. We didn't realize the moving truck was coming later. Are you the cleaning crew?" Rebecca, always haughty, scoffed. "Cleaning crew? No. I'm the owner's daughter. Who are you Mr. Harrison, pulling out a set of keys, replied, "Well, we are the new owners. We closed on the property this morning." That's when the silence hit. Rebecca apparently just stood there, her mouth hanging open. Mark tried to be the intimidating one. "You must have the wrong address. This house belongs to Rebecca's father. He lives here." "Not anymore, son," Mr. Harrison said calmly, handing Mark a piece of paper. "This is the deed, signed and recorded today. The house was sold by Michael T. Miller, the legal owner. It's empty because he left everything tidy for us." Rebecca finally found her voice, a high-pitched shriek of disbelief. "No, that's impossible. This house is in a trust. It was supposed to be mine. My dad is sick. He's been manipulated." The Harrisons, understandably alarmed by the frantic display, stepped back. That's when Mark saw the envelope taped to the refrigerator. He tore it off and brought it to Rebecca. Inside was a single, crisp legal document, the signed and witnessed notification from my lawyer that the living trust had been legally dissolved, along with a handwritten note from me. The note was short, but every word was deliberate. "Rebecca, the house was never an entitlement, it was a home. You tried to take it while I was alive. I sold it while I was healthy. The key to our future was in the legal papers you never read. The trust is dissolved. All proceeds are now in a private, non-transferable account. The key to this front door is the only inheritance you get from this property. I hope you learn what respect means." The explosion was immediate. Rebecca started screaming, first at Mark, then at the Harrisons, then just at the walls. She called me every name under the sun: cruel, heartless, vindictive. Mark, realizing the $800,000 ass that they were counting on had vanished, started shouting about lawsuits and fraud. The police were eventually called because Rebecca refused to leave the property, screaming about squatters. When the police arrived, they looked at the deed, the trust dissolution papers, and Rebecca's hysterical breakdown, and quickly escorted her and Mark off the property, advising them that it was a civil matter and that legally I was within my rights. The aftermath was a nightmare of family drama, but it was a nightmare I was watching from a safe, beautiful distance. Rebecca and Mark immediately launched a legal challenge, but my lawyer shut it down in weeks. The trust explicitly gave me the authority. There was no fraud. There was no coercion. There was just a father exercising his legal right against a child who had become a predator. My lawyer sent them the bill for wasting his time, a final, stinging financial slap. The rest of the family, my cousins, my nieces, and nephews, were sharply divided. Rebecca, naturally, played the victim, telling everyone I had gone senile and robbed her. But the people who knew me, the people who had heard her constant, cruel demands over the years, rallied around me. My sister, my closest relative, was furious at Rebecca and Mark, confirming to everyone who asked that Rebecca's behavior had been appalling for years. She said I had shown great courage and that sometimes a difficult lesson is the only thing a spoiled adult child can understand. I have not spoken to Rebecca since I sold the house. She sent me a long, vicious email, essentially ending our relationship and declaring me a non-parent. I replied with a single sentence: "I wish you peace, and I wish you financial independence." I know she will never forgive me for taking away what she viewed as her birthright. But I also know that if I had done nothing, she would have continued to chip away at my life, my peace, and my dignity until I was gone. Now, I live in quiet bliss by the lake. My health is great, my stress is gone, and my new life is one of genuine tranquility. I donated a significant portion of the sale proceeds to Susan's favorite local charity, establishing a scholarship in her name, a legacy I know she would have been proud of. And yes, a portion of the money is in a new trust, named after my wife, and set aside for future generations of our family, anyone asterisk, except asterisk Rebecca and Mark. The house was sold, the trust was dissolved, and the source of the rot in our relationship was excised. I lost a daughter, but I saved my remaining years, and I finally feel the peace I deserved. So, that's my final decision and the fallout. I stood up for myself. I fought back. I took away the prize that was the motivation for her cruelty. I know some of you will say I was vindictive, or that a parent should never do that to their child. Others will say I was justified. I still grapple with the question, was it worth the loss of my only child? All I know is that I traded 15 years of daily emotional pain for 15 years of peace. Like this video if you were on my side, if you believe that a parent's self-respect is just as important as family peace. Subscribe for more stories like this where the drama is real and the decisions are impossible. And please, share your final thoughts on this whole messy situation in the comments section. I'd love to hear your judgment. I'll see you all in the next story.